In part 1 of this series, we modeled this little nightstand, and in part 2 we modeled the lamp. And this time we're going to model this clock, and we'll put it on the nightstand, and then we'll adjust, I think, the material of the lamp and the clock to make it a bit shiny so that it looks really nice. Okay, so we're going to move to a new layer in Blender. Note that I am in cycles here, and of course we'll turn on the screen cascades over here. Okay, now we're going to put in a background image of the clock, and we'll put that in under Axis, All Views. We'll choose Front, Open, and navigate to where we have that clock. I'll provide the link for that so you can download the same clock. And we don't see anything until we press 1, and there it is. Now, a couple things we should do. We should make sure that our 3D cursor is right in the center, so I'm going to go Shift C, and it is right in the middle. That's great. Press 1 again. Look at the clock. Now you'll notice that the clock is not centered. Let's adjust that a little bit over here. Let's move this just a little bit until it lines up with this in the middle. If we want to, we can also move this, and we can move the clock up so that the 3D cursor is at the bottom. That doesn't really matter that much. And to close that. Okay, we're ready to go. So let's have a look at this shape and think about how we're going to design it and what we're going to model first. I think we're going to be doing this part here. And we can't see all of the detail in this front-on view, so we're going to have to make some of it up. So let's just go ahead. Let's go Shift-A to bring up the Add Dialog box, Mesh, and let's choose a circle. And it's going to come in down here, but before we do anything, let's choose our vertices. Now, by default, it comes in at 32 vertices, but I don't think we'll need that much. We can switch this to maybe 22. And then let's rotate this in the X to face us, RX 90. And we'll have that. Let's move it up and roughly into the middle, and let's hit S to scale and try to match the size of this as best we can. That's not really critical. Alright, something like that. Now we just edited the scale of this in object mode, so I'm going to press Ctrl A and apply the scale. Now with that done, I'm going to actually set the origin to geometry and Shift S cursor to selected, and that'll actually put the 3D cursor right in the middle of our circle. So this is all we have so far. Now we don't have an image that shows the thickness of the clock. You might be able to find one, but we're just going to wing it here. So let's go to 3 to the side view, and let's go into edit mode and make sure that it's selected, and in vertex or edge selection. There is no face to extrude, so that's not going to work. So either one of those from the side, and let's just hit E to extrude, and we'll pull along like that and give it some thickness like that. That's fine. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm going to switch back to solid view, and we'll note that some of my polys look a little sickly. They look a little dark, so I'm going to select everything and Ctrl N to flip the poly so that they all face on the outside. We get this nice sort of gray reflective or a little bit shiny material. Okay, now we're going to close off the front and the back, so I'm going to Shift Alt and click that edge, Shift Alt and click that edge, and I'm going to go E, and before I do anything I will switch to individual origins, and then I'll hit S, and I'm going to pull in just a little ways like this. Okay, so I've done the same thing on the front here and on the back. Now the back we're just going to close up, so I'm going to Shift Alt and click that edge, and I am going to go E, and then it's your choice of how you want to close it off. That's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think I'll go Mesh, Faces, Grid Fill, and then you can mess around with Span and choose the lowest number. That will give you a reasonable result. That looks fine to me. So we closed off the back. I'm now going to take the front, Shift Alt and click there, and let's go back and look at the diagram. And I think we'll go Z wireframe, so we can see what we have. Now, let's Shift Alt and click that edge again, or it's still selected. Okay, fair enough. If I hit N and we come over here, we can see that our image is at the back. We can try front if it makes it easier for us to see. And to close that, let's just S, make sure we've got that. Yeah, we have that edge. Again, I'm not quite sure what happens here, but I think it's going to indent a little bit. So I'm going to come out of wireframe, and I'm going to press E, and I'm just going to pull it in a little ways. I've got the back selected as well, so make sure that you don't have that. Let's just grab that, and let's switch back to median point, by the way. All right, now let's pull that in. Now, I may have created more vertices when I hit E to extrude and I had both selected. I'm not sure. So let's deselect and hit A to select everything, and W, remove doubles in case there was. And you see I removed 44 vertices, so I needed to do that. Shift Alt and click that edge again. So I've indented a bit. Now we'll come back to 1, and I'm going to hit E to extrude and S, and I'm going to pull in until I see the blue line there. It's roughly like that. It's not perfectly centered. Okay, so it looks like it does that, and then it looks like we have the face of the clock itself. I'll just continue that. So I'm going to go, well, we can try a couple different things. Let's just try E and what's grid fill. Face, grid fill to close it up. That looks okay to me. It doesn't really matter that much. Let's go into solid view, and let's switch the image to the back again so we can see what we have here. Okay, there's our basic clock shape. Now we're going to be adding a subdivision surface to this, but we want to do something with these edges. Wherever there's a very sharp edge, sort of 90 degree, like this one here, okay, because this face comes here and then it goes right down there. We're going to want to bevel those or round them. So I'm going to Shift Alt and click that edge, Shift Alt and click that edge, and this edge. And actually I should show you this with just Subdivision Surface before. So let's do that. Let's deselect, go into Object Mode, hit the wrench, add modifier, Subdivision Surface. We'll bring that up to 2 and smooth, and we'll get this. Now, it's a little bit too rounded and there's not much definition here, so we are going to try beveling. So with that on, let's go into edit mode. Let's select those sharp edges, and let's just try this. Control B, pull, and watch what happens to the mesh. Even if I just do that and I don't put any other lines in between, it does that, and that's nice for this kind of clock. Just that smoothness. Now this part we probably want a little sharper inside. So let's go into edit mode and let's have a look at this. Now when I do Control R, okay, I can get some weird stuff, but what I want to do is I want to put an edge loop here and pull down a bit, and you see that sort of straightens out. If I put it right there and then we go back out, we can see it looks a little sharper in there, and that's good enough. I think I'm going to go with that. Alright, so there's our basic watch face. Again, it doesn't match up exactly with the diagram, but that's going to be close enough. Let's create this circular part here, and after we make that, we're going to copy it down here and here. And I believe there's one at the back, so that there are 3 sort of legs for it to stand up. So what are we going to use to create this? Well, my 3D cursor right in the middle, and that's fine. Let's go Shift A, Mesh, and let's choose a UV sphere. Now the default is 32 segments and 16 rings, but we're not going to need that many. Let's try 18 segments. And I'll just divide it by 2, 9 rings, okay? Let's bring this up. Let's go into wireframe mode, and Let's hit S to scale and approximate the shape of that. Close to that. I just scaled in edit mode, and I'm going to go Ctrl A and apply scale. Let's go into edit mode now, and we are in wireframe, and we'll see that we have that. Now there's a little post there. If I hit H, make sure that let's hide that piece. There's a little post that comes off that, so let's work on that. I'm going to pull that up a little bit and make sure I am in edit mode. And I am going to switch over to vertex selection, and I can build the post out of this area right here. It's almost perfect for that, I think. So let's select this. There's only one vertex there, and delete it. And then if I shift alt and click this edge in either vertex or edge selection, I get that region. We could try just extruding that and seeing if we like the result. Let's go E and pull it down into the clock. Now it might not be central. I see that it isn't. Does that approximate what we need? If we didn't like that, we could back out, select that edge, Ctrl plus to expand our selection to the next row, Ctrl plus to the next row, actually just to that row. We could delete those vertices and then select here instead, and E, bring it down. Is that better? Do we like that better? You know, it's really up to you, I suppose. All right, let's look from the side and let's center this as best we can, and then decide if we like that. Now when we apply a subdivision surface, this will shrink down a bit as it sort of smooths out and rounds out, so let's try that. We get that, we hit smoothing, and we're not quite done. That looks all right. Let's go into edit mode though. Let's make this a little bit sharper. You see this white stuff here as the vertices are being pulled and smoothed out. So I'm going to go Control R to bring in an edge loop or loop cut. We'll get that pink line. I'm going to click, and I can now pull it. I can maneuver it. Now if I put it right there and go back into edit mode, I get that. Let's take this and hide it and see. It is a relatively smooth transition. There's not a lot of definition. Alt H to bring that back. We could go into edit mode though and decide if that's good enough. I can shift alt and click it, and I can bring it a little bit closer to tighten that up and see if we're happy. That looks a little bit better. All right, now I'm going to go Shift H to isolate it, look at the bottom, and note we don't have a face down there, and that's good. I would have deleted it otherwise. Alt H to bring everything back. And that is our top piece right there. So it's up to you if you wanted a wider neck or a more narrow neck. So let's select that piece, and we're going to make the feet now. Okay, so my 3D cursor is right in the middle of the clock, and I want to rotate a copy of this down to here. So with my 3D cursor right there, I want to use that as a pivot point, as if this is like a rock at the end of a string, and I'm just going to swing it around like some physics kind of thing. I'm going to switch over here to 3D cursor, and with this object selected, I'm going to go Shift D, and then I'm going to rotate this around the Y-axis, which is coming out at us. So I'm going to go RY, and I'm just going to start to pull. And I'm going to do that. And with that one still selected, I'm going to go Shift D, R, and I'm just going to pull. So I'm not being exact. I'm just basically following the diagram, and that's okay. So I now have those right there. And I can do one more. Shift D, rotate. There we go. Rotate Y. That's the original. Shift D, RY. And bring it down to the center. That's pretty good. I can hold Shift, and I'll get that. All right. I can now take this one. I can pull it up a little ways because it's going to go like this, and then from the side, I'm going to pull this one back. And I think what I'll do is I'll take these two and I'll pull them forward like that, and that'll form my stand. Now, make sure we go back to median point now. I want to just make sure I didn't have another copy there, and I want to make sure I didn't have another copy there or there. Okay, great. All right, let's save our work, and we now have that, and hopefully it'll stand. We can still position these differently if we don't like that position too much. If I wanted them a little bit back, that's fine. All right, great. We're going to make this structure now. Although they're on an angle, it's easiest to make this stuff straight up. But by doing that, we may get a slightly different size to these. So let's bring in a UV sphere again, and let's use the same values that we set. I can press G and just grab and just move it over to here and get a better sense. We're going to be cutting this in half, so let's just go ahead and do that. Let's go into edit mode and wireframe, and let's B to box select and drag through here, and I think I'm going to cut off that much X vertices, and I'll be left with this. Now I can still, in edit mode, I can move G. Looks a little smaller, so let's just globally hit S and scale it. I can do a test rotate. I can go RY and just rotate it and see, and then that looks just fine actually. And then I'll just cancel out of that. Okay, so that's going to be just fine. Now, what do we need to do? Well, we've got this piece coming out, and we've got what looks like a bolt on it, and then you just decide how you want to build this. I think we will, let's take this piece to build this round part. Let's use another one of these, but scale it. Shift D and bring it up. Now I'm still in this object, and let's hit S to scale. I might squash it in the Z, SZ a little bit. And it's centered over this, so I don't want to move anything too much. I could select all of that and bring it down a little bit, and then hit A to select everything and do a test rotate again. You know, this kind of thing. G, move it in. Say, okay, yeah, that looks like it's going to work, so let's just back out of that. Okay, so we got that going on. Now, we should have the same number of vertices here as here, I do believe. Let's delete this point, X vertices. And let's try Shift Alt click there, and Shift Alt click there, and Control E, bridge edge loops. And we're going to have this kind of effect now. It's not straight down, so maybe that's not the best way to do things yet. Okay, fair enough. Let's see what we want to do to get this to fit as nice as we want. We can, well, we can scale this a little bit if we wanted to. Is that what we want to do? Well, let's start this. Let's just go E and let's extrude down. And then we'll decide when we get to this point. Now, in reality, there is a bolt over here, right? And there, it looks like even a little washer or something. So what I can do, because I have this piece underneath here, I could actually extend this down as if it's going to meet the clock. But it looks like it needs to be a little narrower. So somewhere in here, I could just put, you know, an edge loop like that. And then I can narrow this, Shift Alt and click there. I could scale it down, but I'll get that tapering. So what I want to do is put another edge loop here. Let's grab this edge now. And that edge, and we'll scale it in like that. And we'll get a little bit of tapering, but that's not a problem because it's not going to be visible. We can now take this edge, we can even push it up if we want. So we get a little straighter part there. All right, let's have a look at that. All right, I'm going to go with that. And in this area, I'm going to put a bolt, so it's not going to be a problem. So let's look at from the front. Now, this bolt is going to have 6 sides. We're going to make it out of cylinder, and I want it in this position. I'm going to Shift Alt and click this edge and bring the 3D cursor there. Shift C, cursor is selected. That way, when I bring my bolt in, it will come in that position. But I don't want it as in this object. I'm going to go back into object mode, and I'm going to go Shift A, Mesh, Cylinder, and I'm going to choose 6 vertices and cap fill type nothing, so it's open. Go into edit mode for the bolt and hit S to scale. And bring it down like that and scale in the Z, SZ. I'm going to move the whole thing up so I can see the thickness. Okay, let's look at the diagram. It comes up about halfway. That's fine. So I'm going to bring it like this until it sort of goes in, and then I'm going to expand it. E, Alt S, and I'm going to pull out. Let's deselect and have a look. That's not the exact position that I am going to want it. It looks like it's going to fit a little bit on top. So let's hit A to select it all. Scale in the Z, and we'll get something like this. That looks like it's going to be fine. It's going to cover up that hole there. Okay, let's select it in Ctrl N, make sure my polys are flipped the right way. And let's start adding some subdivision surface. Let's select the main bell part, subdivision surface, smooth, and we'll look at this and we'll say, okay, wait a second, it doesn't have any thickness to it. But that looks like it's almost smooth enough. I don't know if I need to go up to another subdivision level, although I could. Let's turn that off for the moment and have a look at this and give it some thickness. And the way I'm going to do that is add Modifier Solidify, and I'm going to bring it above the subdivision surface, which is not on right now. I'm just going to start turning this up until I like the thickness. And I'm looking right here of this thing here. I'm going to hit, once I have that, I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the subdivision surface. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to add some edge loops to this. This edge here is not very well defined. It's hard to see it. And so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go Ctrl R and I'm going to grab the click and I'm going to drag to here. Let's look at that. It's a little sharper. Let's do another one right here. I'm going to do that and just pull towards the inner edge. Now I have a nice flat part. And that's looking okay. This part's going to stick into the clock. It's not going to be very noticeable. If we really wanted to, we could go Control R and drag an edge loop up here just to tighten this up. Normally I would do this and that would be straighter, but it's really not very necessary because this part will be embedded into the clock itself. So that the bell part is looking nice and smooth. And then just to decide what to do here. Now, let's go ahead and put a subdivision surface on this, and then I will bring in some edge loops like this, and we'll sharpen those points up a bit. And we'll just go all the way around on both sides of where the point would be. And we'll just make it look a little nicer. We're not too worried about our poly count here. Just do this. Now when we add the subdivision surface, the bolt shrinks up a little bit, and so we may have to cover up the hole a little bit more. Just make sure I'm not doubling myself up. Looks like I need one on the other side of that. Let's try that and see how it looks. Smooth. We're almost there. Let's just Shift Alt and click that edge there and Control B, and that will help with the smoothing. It's a pretty decent bolt, except for down near the bottom here. I can click that edge and just pull it down. I'm going to need one more edge for support down there, and I might need one more there. And I've got my bolt. Now, let's hide this and come in here, and we need to make this squeeze in a little bit more. So in face selection, I'm going to Shift Alt and click so I get all those polys, and I'm going to scale them in, but I'm going to go up one level, Ctrl plus. In fact, I might go up one more level, Ctrl plus, and I'm just going to go scale, but I don't want it to scale upwards in the Z direction. I just want to come in, so I'm going to hit S Shift Z, S Shift Z, and pull in, and I'll come out. I still have that selected, Alt H, and I see that I now have closed that off. Maybe I can pull it down just a touch there. Okay. Save our work. Doing well. Front view. I think we are, depending on if we want to do, let's hide this and this. If we want to do this circle here, we might, just to be complete. 3D cursor is still right there. Let's go Shift A, Mesh, Circle. 22 vertices is fine. S to scale. Let's go into edit mode and make sure that we are in, not in face selection, vertex or edge. E and S. I'm going to pull in a little bit, and I'm going to close this off, I think. Or I don't have to. I could just scale in so I don't see it anymore. Yeah, maybe that's a good way of doing it. Select it all, and let's extrude down. E, extrude down a ways until it makes contact. My polys are flipped, so A, Control N to flip them. And I could just adjust the position of where I want this. I moved it up a bit, and now I can't see, so in wireframe, I see, okay, I'm going to need to select these bottom faces, so I'm going to Shift Alt and click with the bottom faces. From front view, I'll just pull them down a little ways more, make sure they're embedded. Now, do I need those? There they are there. I suppose I could delete those X faces, and no one's going to look under there. Let's add a subdivision surface to this. I'll go with 2 and smooth. It doesn't look much like a washer, so let's add some edge loops, or just grab this and go Control B to bevel, put 1 or 2 edge loops and see if it looks fine like that. And I think perhaps it does. You might have some smoothing issues along the top, and so really what we need is to add an edge loop. Control R there and just pull it in, and that will take care of that for us. And this is what we have. Save our work. Okay, now we're going to rotate or copy this. So let's try selecting that piece, and this piece, and going Control G, and I get a green line around mine in the theme of Blender that I'm using, and that means that's all one group. And the 3D cursor, let's select the clock here and Shift S, cursor to select it, so it's right in the middle. So if I want this whole group again, I'm going to go Shift G and choose group, and that gets the group there. But I want to set the origin to the 3D cursor. Actually, we're going to rotate this first, aren't we? So let's just do that. Let's just hit RY and tilt this and press G until we roughly match the diagram. And let's look from the side and let's pull it in. We can use these dots to sort of center up around that piece, and that's probably going to be just fine. I'm going to bring it down just a little ways. It looks like this piece is a little shorter, so that I'm just going to do that way. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, and now I'm going to set the origin to 3D cursor, and I think I'll just Shift D and RY, and we'll just do what we did before, like that. And I'm just looking here to get a relatively equal distance. I'm not following the diagram explicitly. We're doing the diagram, but we're not. All right, cool. Now we're going to do this bar. Okay. Well, to do the bar, I'm going to use a plane, Shift-A, Mesh Plane. I'm going to bring it up until it roughly matches the bar. I'm going to rotate X 90 so I can look straight on my plane here. Go into edit mode, and switch to Vertex. I'm going to collapse the vertices, Alt-M, merge them in center so I have just one point. I'm going to create one side of this from this one vertex, and I'm going to copy it over. So I'm going to go E and pull out in the X to about there. And I'm going to go E, pull down in the Y to about there. And I'm not sure how this thing joins, so I'm just going to go E and I'm going to pull it into here, but down just right into the massive stuff there. Now these are not centered, so I'm going to go from 3 and I'm going to pull it back until it's about center there. Alright, so it's just going to kind of go in, I guess. Now, let's go back into edit mode, and you can see that my transform tool is not on this, so I'm just going to set origin to geometry, just like that. Okay, now let's go back into edit mode, and let's shift and click that point and that one there, and we're going to bevel these. But just as before, we can't just go Control B, that doesn't work. Instead, with those points selected, we're going to go Shift Control B, and then we're going to pull, and I'm going to add a few points. I'm just rolling my mouse up. 1, 2. That's probably good enough. Let's go back into object mode, and you will see what the curve looks like. Let's go back into edit mode and select this point and bring the 3D cursor there. Shift S, cursor to selected. I can now select all of this, and I can copy it and rotate it around that as a pivot point. All right. Put that 3D cursor, rotate around the Z. So Shift D, R, Z, 180. There we go. Okay. Now, right here, we should have more than one point. We actually do. So what we need to do is look at it and go into wireframe and box select it, and then go Alt-M, merge at center. Go back on a wireframe. Now we have just one point, but we actually don't even need that point, so I'm going to go X, dissolve vertices. So I now have both sides of this stuff. All right. And if I wanted to, I could box select these now. I can go back to median point. SX, I can pull them in if I want that kind of effect, a little angled like that. Okay, that's good. So here's what we have. Let's convert this to a curve now, so we can give it some thickness. Alt-C, curve from mesh, and this button right here, choose for the fill, full, and start cranking up the bevel. Let's pull it up to there for now, and the resolution, 1, 2 for now, and smoothing, and let's look and see. Okay, it's a little bit thin still, so let's bring it up. I can bring the resolution up one more, and I'm going to have that. Now, this is a curve, so I can go into edit mode, and I can look at these points and decide if I like how they look. What happens if I grab these 3 and these 3, and I just pull down a bit, and then these ones and these ones scale in the X, and then this one and this one, and I just hit G and move it. No, not going to do that. Let's scale in the X a little bit. This one and this one, scale in the X a little bit, just to round it off. This one and this one, bring it up a little bit. Okay, that kind of thing. Okay, it's looking a little rough. We can try Subdivision Surface. Okay, like that. And then we can come back to here, and we can bring up the bevel a little bit more. Okay, so we can manipulate it like that. And looks okay. And so I don't even really need to convert it to a mesh. I can leave it like that. And that is much of our clock done, except for the clock face part. So let's go into wireframe and have a look at that. Okay, we're going to throw down some letters, and I'll do a couple other things. So let's select this and bring the cursor to selected, and we're just going to start doing some text. So I'm going to go Shift A, mesh, no, not mesh, text. Okay, it's right there. Rotate X 90 and pull it out. I'll come out of wireframe so you can see it there. And over here we will do set origin to geometry, and we'll just center it up. Pull it up and go into edit mode and backspace and rate 12. And I'll just get a default font here. Set origin to geometry. And in wireframe we'll just match it up a little bit. Okay, it's centered on my model. It may not be centered exactly perfect with respect. Actually, what you can do is you can bring it down to here and just pull it over like that. Okay, now this is just the default font, and you can choose fonts that you have on your computer, and that's fine. What we then would do is we would come over here and increase the bevel resolution a little bit, and that's going to be okay. I don't want them too big, so I just want to do that. And then we'll look from the front again in wireframe. So I've got a 12 there. I'm going to Shift D to copy it. I'm going to drag it down, go to edit mode and make it a 6, and then just move it to it. The position looks good. I'll Shift D that and drag it over to where the 3 is. And in edit mode, change that to a 3. That's good. Shift D over to the 9. Well, it looks like it's off in its position in the diagram, so hopefully those look okay. Those can all be adjusted. Let's look in solid view, and we've got some numbers on there. Okay, let's do some more. In wireframe, we're going to do these little ticks. Okay. So we're going to make that out of a plane. Shift A, mesh plane, rotate X 90 so we can look in on it. And in edit mode, let's just hit S. Let's bring it up, but don't just grab it and move it anywhere. Keep it central. I want about this width, so let's go SX, about maybe that width, and let's go SZ to sort of mimic the height. That's probably okay like that, but we're going to need to give it some thickness. Let's go back into solid view, and let's hit E to extrude and bring it out about there. Let's select it all and Ctrl and make sure our polys haven't flipped. Now this is not very rounded, so let's just use the Bevel Modifier in object mode. And by the way, I'll set the origin of geometry for now. Let's come over to the modifiers and choose bevel and just reduce it a little bit, just for a small bevel. We could try smoothing. We may or may not like the effects of that. Don't really want to mess with it. I don't want to put too many segments, but I suppose we could do that. That's probably not a good idea. Let's just leave it like that. Okay. Let's bring this to the surface of the clock, like there. Okay, and I'm leaving in that position. Now, I should say that normally you would want to delete the back face right here. I'm going to be using the spin tool, which sometimes doesn't seem to work when you've deleted the back face. It wants like an enclosed object. We can try it, or we can delete the back faces later. I'll show you what I mean. X faces. Select this. Bring it so that it touches the surface. We can adjust this later. Look from an orthographic view like the front. Go into object mode and set the origin to the 3D cursor, as if we're going to rotate around that. I don't need to set the pivot though. Go back into edit mode and make sure that's selected. Okay, so I got my 3D cursor right there. Come down here to spin and choose for the angle 360 degrees of the circle. And look what happens. We get what looks like a mess. And that's because we deleted the back face. All right. So I am going to back out of this a little bit. And let's have a look here. Do I have a back face on there? I do have a back face on there, so I'm going to pull it in. I'm going to do this again with a back face. Set the origin of 3D cursor, edit mode, spin 360, and we want 12 of these. That could be in a wireframe, you'll see. They will roughly match up. They're not going to match the diagram perfectly. Okay, so it works with the back face. We'll deal with that in a second, but let's select them all, W, remove doubles, and it will get rid of some, and Ctrl N to flip. Here, Ctrl N to flip Polly'S. Let's go back. Object mode. And we have this. We don't want the ones at the numbers, so we just go in, select a piece like a vertex, shift and a piece, shift and a piece, shift and a piece. Control L will select what's linked to that, X vertices, and those ones are gone, and that just leaves us with these ones. Okay, I can now select them en masse and decide if I want them just flat. Okay, I can also take those, Shift H, hide everything else, and go back in now, and in face selection I can select that back face, making sure I'm just getting the back face. X faces, get rid of those. Alt H to bring everything back, and I'm there. That's where I'm at. Let's just look at this and see if I like that. Yeah, this looks fine. Yeah, decide if you want to adjust the position of anything. Okay, here's where we're at so far. Let's do something about those hands. I'm not sure what we're going to do here. Okay, so it looks like we got a central disc, we got a couple of discs, and let's just make something not too complicated. With the 3D cursor still right there in the middle, let's go Shift A, Mesh, Circle, leave it at 22, RX 90 to rotate it 90 degrees. Edit mode, let's hit S to scale. And let's do one of these hands here, maybe this one here. Now I'm just thinking, if we go into Vertex, I'm thinking about extruding this piece off of this one. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but we could say, you know what, let's take this point, this one, and this one, and this one. I want it balanced. Would that be a good idea? Now, am I missing? Should it be this one? So that's too many. Let's try this. Let's try E, pull it out. It's not going to match perfectly. I don't want that curve like that. And how about, do we like this idea? What if we grab all those E and S, E and Alt M to merge them at the center? I didn't use grid fill that time. Let's look from the side, give it some thickness. E, come out. Let's go into solid view. That's too much. It's just a watch hand. Select it all and Control N to flip Polly'S. Let's see if we're going to like this effect for the hand. Now, can't really see much. Now, if we add a subdivision surface to this, we would have to add some edges. Control R down here, we would pull that down that way. We would probably pull one in here, and then along the top and the bottom, like this and this. And that would be good enough. That should be good enough. And let's see how much stretching we have. We might actually put one in here. Take that back. We might even put them on the edges, but that's good enough for the distance we're going to be. So we could have a clock hand like that, or a clock hand there. And then to do the other ones, just see if we can we shrink this down at all? Probably not. Maybe we'll just make another one for that. So I'm going to bring this a little bit closer to the surface of the clock face there. You could have that, make that black. Now you could go up and you can add more edge loops if you really want to. You can put one in here and you can put one in there. I'm just doing them on the top, not on the bottom, although they're probably going over onto the bottom, aren't they? It's just if you want to tighten things up, it's up to you. Okay, let's do that again. So something like that. Let's Shift A, circle, rotate X90, and I'll scale it, edit mode. I'll make it similar diameter. Do I want to do that? I don't really know how it's going to go. Like maybe what if I make it a bigger diameter and I choose, say, just these points to make this E and bring it out. We're using this a little bit of artistic freedom here. I have that, and then what I did before was I selected just the inner one. So if I just go Shift Alt and click, I don't get this vertex, so I'll hit that. E and S, and then E and Alt M, merge it center. Select everything and give it some thickness. I'll go E and I'll pull it in this way. A little bit hard to see what's going on. Okay. Select everything, Control N to flip Polly'S, and I get this effect here, like that. Gee, that looks a little bit thick for a minute hand. So let's see what we can do. If I scale just globally like that, yeah, that's not what we want to do. Let's look at this. Okay, what can we do? What can we do? We'll just take. Now this has got some thickness, so I can't just grab points like that. Well, we could put an edge loop here, bring it tight. And we could, in wireframe, grab these edges and maybe just these edges here, and then we could scale them in the X and hopefully not distort our circle too much, and we'd have that. Okay, let's add a subdivision surface, smooth it, and it's going to go all weird, but we're going to put in edge loops. Pull down, and one up here, pull up, and along the sides, like that. You might need one up here, and we would have that, if that looks right. I think that's all I'm going to do for the watch hands, though. I'm going to put one more along here, and along here, and hopefully that didn't distort the circle too much. Yeah, it's not really noticeable. Okay, so I'm going to have that, and we might want a central piece here. Shift A. I could bring in another circle for that matter. Rotate X90, and I'll scale it in object mode. That's okay. I might just want a central piece here. That I extrude, and ES, E Alt M. Now I'm getting tries when I do it this way. Select it all, Control N, instead of using grid fill. If I do use, see, these are triangles, which is not really a problem, but if you didn't like them, you could get rid of that. X these faces, and I could select that edge, and I could use the grid fill. And maybe that's a better way to do it. I don't know. I just, choose. That's probably just fine. Okay, let's go ahead and do a subdivision surface on that little central piece, which would like hold everything. I'll try to get away with one. Okay, doesn't even go all the way back, but that's basically it. Aside from maybe a glass cover or plastic cover, maybe we won't do that. So we would have that right there, huh? I select it all and go Control G, make a group, and I can name the group over here. Okay, clock. Let's move this back to the first layer and scale it down, and hit the period key to zoom in. Scale it some more. Let's move it over here. just look from the front and just make sure like it looks something like that. How's that look for size? I mean, it's cartoony, so it can be, you know, a little bit different than it would be normally. Let's just go there for now. I probably will want it further to the front. So select it, Shift G, group, and it's going to bring it forward. There we go. And then let's do the materials for this. Okay. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to grab these little lines here. I'm going to pull it up to make a new window down here. Select UV, where is it? Editor, image, open, and I'm going to bring in that clock right here. Okay, so I got a picture of the clock. I'm going to select like the bell and materials tab. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. Where am I? There we go. And click new. And under color, I'm going to choose a little bit of that blue. Let's go into material view. All right, so I'm getting similar. And let's see, we can name this here clock body. And I can just now select all these pieces and just go clock body. It's all pretty similar colors. Now we'll do something else to this material in a bit. For now, we're going to just leave it like that. And we'll get this one back here. And then we'll need some black. So let's just hit the plus and new. And we'll come down here, and we're just going to make this black. And let's call this just clock. Numbers, whatever you want. And we'll just select all these pieces that need to be black. And those are all together. Okay, what's going on here, guy? There we go. And the numbers. Okay, so we got that going on. Save. I can actually close this, get rid of that, and give ourselves some more room. We're going to need some white back in there, so I'm going to go into edit mode of the clock, and we're going to select all these faces here. I pressed C, by the way, to go to paint select, and I can now drag my mouse over this, and I can select all these guys in here, just like that. And we're going to want to make those white, and I think we're going to come out a little further than that. So I'm going to go Control plus, and I better go Control plus again to go out to there. Hit plus, new. I'll just call it face, white, and click assign, and that should go in there. Now the one thing we should make sure is let's select everything and go W, remove doubles. Yeah, I had a feeling there was some extra stuff in there. So there we go. And there is our clock. Very nice. Let's have a look with lights through the camera. Shift Z. All right, we'll probably angle that clock. Let's do something about those materials a bit as well. Shift Z to come out of there. And let's just look from here. Okay. Let's split the screen. And T to close that, T to close that, and switch this side over to Node Editor. N to close this. Select the blue from the clock here. Okay, clock body. And you can see these are the nodes for what we did here. Diffuse, that blue color. We want this a little shinier, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this node and go Shift S, shader, and choose principled, and I'm going to actually switch it to principled, okay? So nothing has changed, everything is the same. I'm going to come to metallic, and I'm going to go 0.2, and that's going to make it a little shinier, but we're going to do a bit more. Let's also Shift A to add a shader, mix shader, put it in here. And then I'm going to add another one, Shift A, shader, glossy, and put it down here. And I'm going to connect this dot to this dot, and I'm going to get this effect. Let's move this out a little bit. Let's switch this over to Beckman, and this to try 0.3, maybe even 0.2. What it means is more of this is going to come through than this second one here. Now let's go Shift Z, and have a look at that. I need my lights, which are on another layer. And now we have quite a bit shinier. So maybe I want 0.3. That's a little bit too much gloss, so maybe I want 0.1. Ah, that looks about right to me. 0.1. A little bit of this white gloss and this metallic and that. Okay. Now the watch face I've left is just a diffuse white. I think that's going to be okay for this one. Let's save our work and give it a camera view or into camera view, whatever it is. Okay, let's do the same with the lamp. Select the lamp, and I have just this. Okay, I want to switch this to a principled shader. It doesn't really matter, I suppose, but yeah. Shift S, shader, principled. That switches it to that. We'll do metallic, same, 0.2. We'll try them just the same. Shift A, shader, mix shader. Add a mix shader, just drop it in, that'll connect it properly. Shift A, shader, glossy, bring it down. We will connect this to this. We will turn this to Beckman, and this was 0.3, I believe. And we'll just Shift Z, and we'll see if we like that effect. Maybe a little bit too much. Let's go 0.2, even 0.1. Let's look from the camera. That might be just what I want right there. Okay, I'm going to give that a try. I'm going to grab these lines and pull it over, and see the arrow release. Okay, I'm in camera view. Now, by the way, I can select this light and hit the box here and come over and switch it to just like bounds or something. Just be careful you don't select it. Just if you need to move things around a little bit. Let's grab that and Shift G, select the group. Didn't work, so let's grab another part of it, Shift G, group, so I get the whole clock. And how do I want to rotate this? Let's try rotate Z and just sort of by hand. Don't really want it like that. Well, I might do that and then just reposition my shot a little bit. Maybe I'll go something like that. We'll give it a try from that position. Let's see, Shift Z. Alright, I might even rotate that differently. Let's do a test render, and then we'll come back. Alright, here's what my render looks like, and I'm very pleased with that. My little night table, my lamp, and my clock. You'll note that I didn't change the material on the black. You might want it shinier. I probably would have this minute hand a little bit thicker than that. Alright, in terms of the render settings, I've only done it at 65. We'll up that and do a higher quality render, but I've got it at 65. My sampling I have at 250 right now, and I've got denoising on. Again, I'm using Blender 2.79, not 2.8. So I'm going to give this one more render at a higher resolution, and that's going to be it. Thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.